You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Natalia Bialkowska, owner of NB Law Firm, based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, specializing in personal injury and Canadian immigration and notary. Natalia is a multilingual Canadian lawyer of Polish origin, educated in the United States. How about that for an intro, Natalia? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Betty. You got it all in one sentence.
I did. I got it, didn't I?
You did
I
great. Thank
any,
you.
I didn't have any little punctuation in that either. But it's actually it's true. Like the length of the intro is very indicative of like your story and how much you've accomplished. It's quite impressive.
Thank you. It's a good summary for sure. You got it all right there.
All right, good. I like that. Thank you. All right, so very well-rounded young attorney here. So thanks for being here in Toronto. We really appreciate you coming out, spending some time with us to discuss your story and what you're doing now and how you got there, and give us a little bit of advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very excited to be here. As I mentioned, it's an honor to join the ranks of some of your guests. So thank you very much for having me on.
Oh yes, of course. All of my guests are very special to me. Just so you know,
exactly.
I don't just mean that. I just we've done almost we're up to 90 something podcasts, and it's an absolute thrill to talk to everybody and to meet people from different places and get perspectives. I love it. So
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to feature you soon on the Lawyer Stories Instagram feed. We haven't done that, lawyer_stories.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start by asking, you were born in, can you help me pronounce this, Toruń, Poland?
Yes, that's correct. Toruń, Poland. Correct,
okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. You were born and raised there. Give us a little background.
Exactly. Yeah, I was born there, and it's a beautiful city. It's a it's a town. It's a great town. It's where Nicholas Copernicus was born. That's what it's famous for. I grew up there in a sense that I went to a boarding school there, and I left pretty early on because at the age of 16, I moved out from Poland to go to the United States, where I finished high school. So my first 16 years were in Poland.
Okay, yeah. That's amazing. I know. And then you left at 16. We're going to get to that, but first we have to talk about when you were 5 years old. You had you conducted divorce proceedings with your dolls and your teddy bears. So I just have to wonder, what was the outcome of those divorce proceedings?
Well, everybody won, Ben.
Everybody won. Okay. Spoken like a true mediator and an attorney.
Exactly.
And you don't even
I did it all in one sitting.
You never even went into matrimonial law either, and you were.
Yeah, well, those were my humble beginnings.
Right.
I'm kidding, but it's part of that question of why becoming a lawyer and when did I decide. And I have to tell you, I'm one of those people that I sort of just always knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I don't know. It just was natural for me. I like order. I like rules, and I like processing them and making sure that we can use them to the advantage and the goodness and benefit for the people. So I sort of it was natural for me. So just as some people, have that musical talent and are just born to either play an instrument or write music. I had it just inherent love for law. So yeah, I was that kid running around with, just divorcing my teddy bears and dolls here and there. So
that's amazing. I'm kind of curious about that, but that's maybe another show.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we did say
off the record stories. Yeah.
Off the record stories. So we did say multilingual. I do want to throw in English, Polish, Spanish, and German. That is pretty impressive. Okay, so we don't know if any precedent was set in the court of dolls and teddy bears.
Fair
But
enough.
like, so you went over from at 16 to the U.S.
Yes.
from Poland.
Yes. Yes.
You went to a private school, which
Yes.
was it in Maryland or Virginia?
Yes, correct. It was
Maryland.
in
Okay.
nearby Baltimore, in
Got it.
Glencoe in Maryland. It was a private school. The reason why I got so lucky to even attend, I went there on a practically full scholarship.
Amazing.
Because as you can imagine, I come from a family of a single parent. It's
Wow.
just my mom and I, and both of my parents are musicians.
Okay.
So that's another little anecdote for, I went 180 from my family.
That's great. That's cool though. That's really cool. I really want to know about like what kind of music, but we could talk about that after. You could tell me.
Sure.
If you want. So it sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, and so I went on a full scholarship to Oldfield School. It's an all-girls school. I finished up those 2 last years of junior and senior year of high school. And the reason why I chose that school is, well, other than me myself being chosen in a full scholarship by them, is the fact that it was a boarding school, because I came to the United States all alone. I had no family in the US. And one of the rules was that I have to live on campus to, make sure that it's all kosher. And that's kind of how my story started as far as my education.
That's right. So hopefully you made some friends there.
Oh yeah, plenty of friends. Well, I ended up being a president of high school in my last year. So I guess I was lucky enough.
That's incredible. So, I think it's significant too, to start like that. You went from Poland and you went there to get like the best education possible, right?
Correct.
And then you find yourself in Boston, basically. That's like down the street from where I live.
Nice.
At Brandeis, which is an amazing school.
Yeah, it's a great school. Yeah.
Right, and then so you're at Brandeis. You probably had an amazing experience there. I think you had a scholarship.
I had a lovely time. It was a school for me. I mean, I majored in philosophy and political science. They allowed me to combine it with legal studies. So again, I already knew that eventually I'm going to end up in law school. So I mean, that was the right place for me. It's as I think you might know. I mean, it's right nearby you. It's in Waltham, and it's very much a liberal art school focused on social justice. And one of the amazing things that I got there as an experience is it's one of very few colleges at that time that had an Innocence Project division, the actual New York-based Innocence Project. Okay. So I got involved in that, and that was just magnificent. Righting the wrongs of the criminal justice system. That was a really, quite eye-opening experience for someone who already was interested in those topics. So
yeah, that's I was a legal studies major too. Actually, well, you were a minor, but I did legal studies at UMass. I loved it where I went to undergrad. So excuse me, and then you went out to California for law school at UCLA. Yes. How did you get all the way out there? What happened there?
Well, I'll be honest, I wanted one of the famous T14, as it's called. So it was one of the top schools that I got into. And again, scholarships helped a lot. So it was an obvious choice for me. It was a very good school, in a comfortable enough setting for me to become a part of it. And honestly, I mean, I also wanted to, I think, maybe taste a different coast. I already lived enough on the East Coast.
It's incredible. And I don't mean to stop you, but I think one of the big things here, why we go through this step by step, is because your story is all about like, let's get to the best place for me, best financial decision. Yes. I mean, very methodical and very, very smart from a young age. I mean, you got to see, you came from a foreign country, you went to a boarding school, you go to like almost outside of Boston, right? Then you're in California, exactly. And then you make your way back to New York, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, well, actually, New York happened while I was still at Brandeis. So It was my very first internship right after my first year at college. I magically got into an internship in New York. It was in the Supreme Court there. That's, as you might know, is the first instance court.
That's
so it sounds a bit higher up than it is. That's actually. Right. But it also, for me, it allowed me to be right in the nitty gritty of litigation, because I ended up in a civil branch under Honorable Karen Smith. And that was just magnificent. I mean, can you imagine a 19-year-old sitting there, listening to motions being argued, and then seeing a, asbestos related class action trial? I mean, that was just mind blowing.
And you had a great experience. You were clerking. You had a great experience, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I was given the opportunity to draft some decisions that the judge obviously, walked me through and ended up adopting them. And so that was a huge, also I have to admit, a very big ego boost. It was a type of a confirmation and validation that, I might not be half as bad at this. So that was a wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
Very good. That's great. So tell us about your first legal job after UCLA.
Wow. Sure. So my first legal job was with law offices of Richard Fisher. He has now unfortunately passed away, but he was a very skilled litigator in personal injury. The firm was all pure personal injury mixed with workers' compensation.
Okay.
And when I got the job because I started applying post literally in that summer, right around the time, right after taking the bar exam, the California bar exam.
Yep.
And I ended up getting that job as not even an associate. I guess it was like a free lawyer type of position.
Okay.
And then I actually secured a full-time offer job before even getting the bar results. I mean, I was believed in enough that I would pass, that I got the job for sure. And then I ended up staying there for quite a few years.
And where was this? This was Mr. Fisher's office?
Correct. Yeah, okay. That was Richard Fisher's office. It was in Encino, actually, a little bit up north in the LA area. Okay. And he was serving kind of all of Southern California. So I ended up actually being a lot in San Diego and in Bakersfield, and covering those areas. But it was all in PI and work comp. And I'll be honest with you, Ben, I had no idea what type of area of law I'm actually stepping into, because like I said, I was that early postgraduate stage where I just wanted a job.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. I mean, it was like if you asked me beforehand if I know enough to make a conscious decision about that job, I would tell you, I don't think so. Now looking back in time, I was just such a youngster. But I always had a knack for medicine, I think. I was pretty good in like anatomy classes, so for whatever reason. So it clicked. I think that tie of not having issue with studying, consequences on a body after an accident, where it kind of all ended up fitting together. So yeah, that was the first job. Yeah.
Wow. And you were there for how long?
I want to say I started in 2014 and left in 2016, end of 2016. So I was for about 2-3 years there. And I sort of stayed an associate throughout all the time. And then I ended up switching firms to a different law firm nearby. It's like the Wilshire Boulevard area. So the nearby WeHo area, those areas, in the right in the middle heart of Los Angeles. I ended up working for 2 partners. They ended up growing quite extensively, ended up with a few associates. And that was another personal injury law firm, and just strictly personal injury. So I kind of continued on that path.
So now you've been in New York, the Boston area, LA, Bakersfield. What's your favorite location by this point?
Well, I have to tell you, I had always that hidden love for the East Coast, and I think that's how I ended up in Toronto. Because
I guess that's sort of East Coast. I mean, I don't know. And by the way, beautiful Toronto is right there.
Yes. Shout out to the city. Yeah, right in my office.
If people are just listening out there, they got to check out the YouTube version because it's amazing back there. It's a cool view.
Thank you very much. Got lucky with the office to have those views. So right in downtown, I can tell you, you can see CN Tower. If you just looked out the window a little bit, you could see a CN Tower right there. It's about a 3-minute walk. So, and Lake Ontario. So, I mean, right in the heart, in the entertainment district of Toronto.
Very cool. So you worked for these 2 firms in California.
Yes.
When did you know that it was time to launch your own firm?
I think by the very end, so I ended up leaving the last firm in 2019, I want to say. And I did it very consciously, knowing that it's time for me to go out on my own. I think I kind of, grew enough of experience and also self-confidence, and I was ready. I was ready to open up my own shingle. And again, it was one of those moments where, because and it hit me that it's time.
You sort of went as far as you could there. And you
Exactly.
said to yourself, it's time for me to do this on my own. I can handle it, right?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
So what I read from what you submitted, it said that you wanted to take what you liked and mix it with what you wanted to see improved.
Yeah.
To create the firm of your dreams.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was lucky enough to gain that experience hands-on throughout all my internships and all my legal jobs. And I was always an associate who obviously dependent on the final decision of a partner, right? And I have to admit, there were a few instances where I would have made a different decision, to the point of where I was given, again, a marvelous opportunity of trying cases and actually being, a second chair, and then at some point a first chair in a lot of also workers' compensation trials, which are a bit different because it's in front of a judge. But still, the idea applies that, it's different. I think it's much different when it's actually all on your head. And you certainly know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a matter of owning your own business, right? So it's the same in every profession. I think once it's all in your hands, where it's not just your reputation, but all your decision making, that all belongs to you. It's a different type of pleasure that you get from the job, right? Because if you get it right, it's almost like life pats you on the back. You know what you're doing.
That's right.
Rather than constantly having that both. And again, it's a great thing to have someone to rely on, but I think it takes a specific kind of responsibility and trust in yourself and confidence to be able to handle it on your own. So, I knew that I'm going to end up with my own law firm one way or the other.
Right.
And I was ready. I was very I'm always happy to be able to lead things in the way and to the direction that I want to. Okay. So I was lucky in the sense that I had the experience, and I worked both for law firms in California and also in Toronto, in Ontario, before opening up actually my own firm.
Okay.
So I saw it all. I saw the good, I saw the bad, and I learned from both.
So what made you head back to Toronto?
Well, like I said, I started missing East Coast in a sense of that it's a different mentality, all right? I think we can admit that. And Toronto specifically, to me, and it's just my personal opinion, Toronto is just like a young, clean, New York City.
Okay, all right.
And maybe, it's what they say, it's your first love. Like, look, my first legal internship was in New York. So it's something that will always be in my heart. And it was nice to sort of a bit maybe come back to it.
What about Poland?
A different version.
What about Poland? They could use a skilled litigator.
But, I love Poland, but I think our relationship is such that it's nice to visit. And thank you very much.
Very good. So, your story is great. I mean, you've traveled and lived in places that, like we talked earlier, that would provide the best opportunity financially and just the best opportunity to learn and grow, the best education. Tell us about the importance of taking advantage of unique opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's very important to stay alert, for when things come and fall into your lap. But I think that as much as you have to stay alert, you have to constantly be ready for that opportunity to happen, right?
Okay.
So don't pray for an opportunity, pray for the fact to be ready to receive it. Because you can go through life with many doors open, and I myself, I fell a victim to that mentality of, okay, well, I'll get ready. No, get ready. And then the things, when they come to you, you'll be actually ready to take a full advantage of them. So I think it's very important to keep on working on yourself in a sense of not necessarily constantly waiting for a payout, but at the same time being aware that if you're ready for that payout and if you get yourself to that place, it will eventually come to you, right? I mean, you know, all the hard work, at least in my life so far, paid off, knock on wood. So there was never anything that I learned in life or put in my own work or my time that didn't eventually somehow turn around into some good. And that includes, you know, the best example is languages for me. You know, those 4 languages that you listed, all of them I learned in Poland. So I came from a country that is very much aware that you've got to speak foreign languages, and the education that I got there is the exact foundation that I needed to then sort of continue on. And I can tell you that I'm taking full advantage of those languages predominantly actually just now, having opened my law firm, because I'm serving clients in all 4 languages.
Well, that's actually, I have a follow-up question to that, actually. I don't,
Sure.
Continue. I don't want to cut you off. Like, continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna, so to wrap up, the example of the languages is the best one. You know, when I took on Spanish, for instance, it was for kind of like, you know, the giggles, like you have to take another language, which one? Okay, it's gonna be Spanish. And I consciously chose Spanish, not French, because I thought I'm gonna be miserable with French with all the conjugations. Mind you, there are conjugations in Spanish, but anyway, so for some reason it worked. But think about it, Spanish is what gave me half of the clients in California. And it sort of all fit together, but it's not why I chose California, right? It's like, again, I was ready for what California was able to offer me because I happened to learn the language way back when I was 12 years old in Poland. So, and obviously, thanks to my clients, big shout out for teaching me even more and teaching me much better than what I am, you know. So I learned my Spanish from them as well, but now I am able to take on full case and actually have a retainer in Spanish, explain legal ideas in Spanish, and have satisfied clients who are able to, you know, who are more often than not, they are immigrants who might not actually speak fluent English. So it helps to build a client-lawyer relationship of trust, you know, based on trust and communication, right? Which is like the key in our job. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and you, like you mentioned, you have binational experience. So like, what are people's ideas and understanding about how like the law functions in different places? Is there like a different vibe from like each sort of community?
Well, you know, I have to tell you that, yes, there certainly is. There certainly is. And yes, I do have, because I have experience in specifically personal injury in both California and in Ontario, I can tell you that the public perception and awareness of law, specifically personal injury law, is so astonishingly different. I mean, it's like night and day. So, you know, real life example from what it is for me, I still get phone calls from my, you know, all past clients in California who, you know, might call me even from the scene of the accident. And they're like, hey, listen, there's this recording, should I get it, right? And maybe it's because they're my past clients, so they now know how it functions and what to pay attention to. But the awareness, just the awareness of like, wait, there's insurance that will pay out the benefits. There might be a lawsuit, you know, I need to preserve evidence. Those are completely not the things that I've happened to seen from Canadians here in Toronto, Ontario, at least. You know, the example that just comes to mind, because it simply happened right in front of me, so I happened to witness it, is there was a gentleman pedestrian. I was sitting out on a patio having a burger, okay? I was just chilling out on a lunch break. And a guy is walking down, crossing the street, and a taxi just happens, I don't know what, but happens to tap into him so hard that the guy falls down, spills the coffee. I mean, you have an actual pedestrian.
Did you see this?
Accident. Yeah, and I'm seeing this happen.
So what did you do? Did you run over? Did you like wave your card at them or what?
But I have to tell you that I was watching it from a perspective of like, and what now, right?
Wow.
And what happens is the guy just picked himself up, tapped the cab of like, watch out where you're going, and just happened to go
away.
So
if it was like the US, right? Somebody would have like jumped on the ground, like waved their hand.
I mean, I think you would at least get a car insurance information in California, whereas here it's just like, you know, pat himself out, and you can see that he's like limping and in pain. So it wasn't a no accident, but still, my point is though that it's like, it's a completely different awareness, and I think it might come from a nature that, you know, I don't want to use the word litigious. I like to use the word aware of your rights.
Okay.
So, however you want to call it, though, it is a bit of a different culture and mentality, I think.
Well, the big question is, like, how was the burger? Like, did you enjoy it?
Oh, delicious.
Okay,
I did go back there.
Sorry,
not to go watch more accidents, but just for the burger.
Not to go watch more. No, that's very interesting to say, like, aware and legit. I mean, that's very
yeah, it's quite different.
That's interesting. So, pardon me. So, what advice would you provide a new lawyer who's just starting out as a solo practitioner?
Sure, yeah. That's a great question. I think, for any solo practitioner who already was ready and decided to, open up their own firm, I think just bottom line is keep on pushing. You're gonna have hard days. I know. I have some all the time. It's the nature of life, right? You have a good day, you have a bad day. But the bottom line is to not lose track of why you even started a firm and what type of service you thought in your head that you can provide. And kind of keep on pushing, but also at the same time, don't settle and don't compromise. Those are the two things that I lived by, and maybe that's why I ended up making decisions that I did, as far as both school and later on my career. Is, if you don't like the area of law, don't keep on doing it because you think you're gonna get used to it, right? Like open up your mind a little bit and see what's out there and try it out. For instance, I opened up a law firm and the idea was we're going to stick to personal injury and Canadian immigration law.
Okay.
And very quickly, I happened to realize that what's actually needed on the market and what I'm also good at is, get myself licensed as a notary, because that is something more unique that's different from how US works. You actually have to be a lawyer, with just very few exceptions of like court representatives. You actually have to be a lawyer to be a notary. And it does take a separate certificate. And again, you then can go on and, you start specializing in how to provide notarized documents for outside of Canada, involving all those services of authentication, legalization. So what I'm saying is I learned kind of on the job, different new things, not even having maybe full awareness that such thing exists or is needed by the market. And then I happened to fall into it. So don't just settle, don't just stick to what you know, keep on learning, and then also don't compromise. Don't take on everything. Make sure you still stick to your own rules and preferences. So it's a balance, right? You have to, while you stay open, know what you know about yourself and know your limits. So
okay, that's great. I think that's really interesting. So Natalia, like you strike me as somebody really independent. Did you ever have a mentor or somebody that helped you along the way?
I did. I had marvelous mentors along the way, especially throughout my education.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what framed me. So first of all, Oldfield School was a blessing. I mean, honestly, I cannot even name anyone just by the name because there are so many names that I would have to list. All my professors there were spot on people who, it's not only spot on in a sense that they gave me great education. Those were the folks who lived with us on campus, and they were like, your second mom at some point, right?
Did you keep in touch with friends still from there and people from there?
Yes. Certainly, both with the teachers and friends, and I very much.
That's good. I don't know. It like makes me feel warm inside to know that, because I picture you as like 16 and like even little like Poland and showing up at this place, and you're like, I don't know anybody. Hi, everybody. And
let me tell you a quick anecdote.
I'm a social broker. I like to know that you have friends that you're still talking to from there.
Oh yes, certainly. Certainly I do. Right. And we stayed in touch throughout years. And what's amazing is a very quick anecdote. So when I first arrived to Oldfields, my English is now all right, but back then it was to every question I was just answering yes, no, because I just was not, I was not fluent enough. But sure enough, that's the thing though. I happened to be lucky in a place that I landed. where it wasn't laughed at. This wasn't like a, oh, here comes an immigrant type of thing where it's, you can feel it sometimes when it's being looked down upon. It was quite the opposite. It was like, wow, well, let's help her out, let's do this. And I can tell you, in my AP classes, I had a history professor who ended up spending hours and hours and hours of extra time just with me to make sure that I understand like
That's
US
amazing.
history.
Yeah.
So I just got lucky. I really got lucky in that sense. And then at Brandeis, I had marvelous professors with whom I still stay to this day in touch, who came out to UCLA, had their lectures, and I obviously, was able to see them there and catch up. And then at UCLA, UCLA is UCLA, right? I mean, that as far as academics, that kind of speaks for itself. But I also got lucky there. There was a professor, specifically one that I think of, that was teaching me evidence course. And I mean, he taught me how to think like a lawyer, what they say. That's the guy. He did that for me, So I was lucky kind of through my education path to have that. And then again, I was lucky enough to join the firms where I was being taught on how to be a lawyer. I did get that hands-on experience where, my partners allowed me to do trials, So, Richard Fisher just at some point gave up the work comp whole site for me and said, go do trials.
Like, here you go, so, just take it, right?
Yeah, but I was happy to do it, right? I always wanted to be a litigator. So it fit in. So, talk about taking advantage of a moment. So that was, again, kind of fell into my lap, but I took it.
So independent and amazing stuff. So
thank you.
Let me ask you something. So when you're trying to establish yourself in a new community, because you did move around and you went to amazing schools there in academia, and you coast to coast, what is good advice for somebody who's trying to settle in a new community?
Yeah. Reach out and connect with as many people as possible.
Okay.
But also choose your closer connections wise. Have a lot of acquaintances and few friends, because you certainly need to build a support and a good network, in a sense of that support network, people whom you can call on when you are onto your next new place from your old place, someone that will back you up, in a sense of just being there as a friend. And that's one thing that I can tell you about the people that I did carry through my life and am in touch with from all those places all throughout, is that they are solid. They are solid people who they are for life. They're not going anywhere. And it's not a lot of people, but the people that there are, I can call 24/7, and I can tell you right now, every one of them will pick up a phone, and whatever I need, and it works both ways, obviously.
Amazing.
But whatever I need will get done immediately, no questions asked. And that type of connection that you build with people throughout years, that you sustain, I think that's what makes life go on, right? I mean, this is where ultimately we're humans, so we need that connection. So choose them wisely, but once you have them, don't ruin that. Work for it, keep it up.
So you're saying like quality is better than quantity.
Yes.
Like, if you have a good quality group of people you could reach out to and sort of identify with, like, it's better than knowing 5,000 people at a party.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Took me a little longer to realize that, but I understand that 100%. That's great. So tell us about MB Law Firm. Like, what does MB, how do you separate yourself from other firms in the area?
Sure. Well, one thing that helps is being Polish, reaching out to the Polish community, that, they are quite supportive in a sense that the word spreads around. It helps to speak the language, I can tell you that. Obviously, the same applies for other languages, especially Spanish. Because you speak someone's language, that helps a lot. It kind of, it just goes by word of mouth, right? Like, people just start recommending you because they had a good experience with you, and they know that you will offer the same, or at least will try to offer the same to whoever else they will recommend. But I have to tell you, I am still fully settling in a sense that we are constantly working on some type of new marketing idea, or letting ourselves out there. But one thing is that I do keep on going around and knocking on doors, right? So you never stop hustling in that sense.
I love it. True hustler.
So, yeah, yeah,
True hustler.
gotta hustle it out a little bit. But I mean, I think again, it's just my personality. I'm a bit of a go-getter, right? Like if I come up with a plan, we got to make it happen. Let's go, let's go. So
we have to do this tonight. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I do work a lot of hours. So yeah, and and I like to pursue that. I mean, look, I like to know, what limits I can hit. So.
Okay. No, that's great. I mean, I think any client wants their attorney to be you're obviously a very intelligent young woman, and you have a lot of experience, a lot of life experience, like
Thank you.
being place to place. There's so many people who don't really do that. They're content in one place, and then that's what they do, and that's fine. I mean, that's great. What you've done is pretty tremendous for yourself, and you should definitely take time to reflect on that. How awesome it's been to be all over, and experience the U.S. and settle down in Toronto. So you should definitely, I'm sure maybe you do, but you should take some self-reflection and really feel good about how far you've come, and you have so much more. Yeah, you have so much more. So you have court admissions in D.C., California, Michigan. Michigan's what happened with Michigan? How's that get in there? And then so how does this help your firm? And then tell us about the Michigan thing.
Sure. So, well, Michigan was the last. So it was first California, and then DC, and then Michigan was just recently. The reason why Michigan is because Detroit is so close to Toronto. So, having opened up a law firm in Toronto, I believe I haven't said my last word yet with my US practice in that sense. And, I would love to see, obviously, for my law firm to grow and also grow into the US eventually. It's something that was always of interest to me. I fell in love with legal practice in California. I mean, I did well enough there where I think that it would be, I never said goodbye technically to it. So it's just a matter of literally activating a license. But obviously, everything in its due time, and you want to make sure you settle well where you first opened up. But Michigan was an obvious choice in a sense of closeness to Ontario. So that's primarily why. And I got lucky enough that I got in. So it all worked out. So, but it's very much of a stepping stone that is maybe gonna, hopefully will get taken advantage of at some point in the future. So yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. So does your personal experience coming over at age 16 from Poland, do you feel it makes you a better immigration attorney? Did you have to go through any of that process? Do you think a real life experience for a lawyer helps them if they actually end up pursuing that area of law?
Yes, absolutely. And I think you hit it right on the nail. That's exactly it. So first of all, I understand being away from your family. I understand the decision of wanting something better for yourself and your family, and to do it at the cost of parting, temporarily even from them. And because of that, one thing that, for instance, in Canadian immigration I can offer is, and I always bring it up to my clients, is look, I can get you here on the work permit. How about your spouse or partner? Do you have children? We can bring them along as dependents. So it's kind of, I mean, maybe it's obvious, but it's something that I don't think it's, I don't see it as necessarily a part of the questionnaire and awareness of some of the immigration attorneys.
I don't think it's obvious. I think it's actually having a lot of empathy, because you went through it. Maybe, and so now you're helping people do similar things, right?
Right, exactly. And here's the thing, I was a newbie all alone to the US. And I was a newbie and all alone to Canada. So throughout all my life as an immigrant, it was sort of make stuff happen by yourself, for yourself, right? And when I say for myself, it's obviously me, my family, and and the people in my life. But the idea applies that because I did it alone, I understand how lonely, in a sense of how much actual support and knowledge, inside knowledge, you might actually need in order to make stuff happen.
Right.
So, silly things of, what's double in Canada, it's Tim Hortons famous coffee with milk and sugar. It's like, it's things like that, where again, maybe it's just cultural stuff that sooner or later you will learn. But take that silly example and translate it now into what it means in law, specifically immigration law. When you start talking about at what point can I apply for work permit upon my graduation from studies? Yes, but you have to get it done within 180 days. So, and people don't know that, and they miss their chances simply because of that lack of knowledge. And this is
right.
This is why we have lawyers. But I think this is also why it's important to spread the word and just make people more aware of the opportunities that they have, simply because they might not know.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And you've practiced for almost a decade. So like, what changes would you make to our profession?
Well, because I happened to get experience with Ontario and have that kind of comparison with California, one thing that I realized is, so in Ontario, under the ethical rules, because the Law Society of Ontario controls the law here, they let you know right away from the beginning that when you open up your law firm, within the first, whatever it is, 5 or 7 years, they have a right to, and they let you know ahead of the game. They will come knocking on your door to check how you're doing your business and whether everything is, like I say, kosher according to the rules, right? Whether you are ethical and following the rules. And that includes, that goes from bookkeeping to client verification to retainers, everything. And here's the thing, what I've noticed from having practiced for lawyers who have been doing it for a really long time, experience is everything, but this is why we have continuing education credits and why we lawyers are expected to stay on top of our game. So what I would like to see is two things from our regulatory bodies, right? Whether it's state bar or law societies in Canada. One thing is I would want a little bit more maybe oversight, let's call it that way, and not just for the newbies, but also for those who really settled in and are now, 40 years under the belt.
Really? So you want to whip on like the older people?
I just think that we might need. I think here's the thing: we're such a serious profession in a sense of the power that we have, that it might be worthwhile to check in here and there. Generally as a predetermined and well kind of known fact. Like I know, for instance, I know that I need to know my rules, not just because I have to, but also because someone will look at me at some point, right? And look at my books. But at the same time, with the same coin, the other side that I would like to see is a little bit more protection for lawyers. So here's the thing. In so far in my line of work, it hasn't happened yet, but I've heard enough from my colleagues who have their own law firms and had them for quite a while, for instance, of an issue of unpaid bills from clients, right? So what do you do in such circumstances? And maybe it's time that, our regulatory bodies could take that off, that hustle. Again, I've been lucky enough to not have to deal with this issue, but it happens here and there enough where I think maybe we deserve also more protection. So, if I want more protection, I will give you more regulation, right? So maybe just a mix of a little bit of that, where we can kind of join forces and what to do in such circumstances. Because I have to tell you, I have some colleagues who are still struggling with some of those issues where I think that, it might be touching us as a whole, right? As a group, just simply as a profession. So maybe just a little bit more. Maybe I'm one of those who believes in a little bit of involvement of the
of
How
about you believe in awareness?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
know the rules and then live by them, hopefully.
How about for your firm, we can brand it and say your logo could be like "Be Aware" or something like that.
That's a good one. Now you're giving. I should just, I'm gonna have a marketing meeting here afterwards.
I mean, we could. I never thought I'd find myself in legal marketing arena, but here I am. So
here you are.
Be aware. That's
be aware. Exactly. Be aware and keep up with the knowledge, right? Because it's an ever-changing field. Yeah.
I love it. So let's see here. okay, so we've asked about like what changed. So like, what is it about your firm that you'd like people to know?
When you become my client, you get my private cell phone, and I'm
Really?
available. Yeah, and I believe in being available 24/7, obviously within human limits of
Well, I don't
maybe
know. I think
pushing a little
I
bit.
don't know, Natalia. I think human limits. You might get your sleep
um,
from like 2 to 3 a.m. and then you're answering the call.
no, I'm
And
good.
I'm just saying that because that's a good thing for you. I
Yeah,
mean, I think
thank you,
I'm just
thank you.
saying
But I
that's
have to
another way
tell
of
you,
saying that's
yeah.
another way of lawyer stories saying you are a hard worker and we could tell.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I have to tell you, Benny, one thing is I have yet to have a client who takes advantage of it in a sense of putting me in an awkward position. I think that being accessible, weirdly enough, makes people comfortable enough where they don't need you so much. So
Okay.
so far it's working for me very well.
I think that's a really interesting point. You put a client in a position where you're doing well and they don't have to contact you at 4 in the morning, right? Or 3 in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But here's the thing, there's something specific about immigration law particularly, and I think also personal injury, where I want to know if something big and I need to know if something big happens in my client's life, right? So, it might not necessarily need to be delivered to me the same minute, but again, the fact that they can reach me directly instead of through my support staff or through other phone calls, or they can actually get a hold of me, someone who is leading their case. It preserves the information. I know what I can do with it right away. And again, if they need to make a decision on anything, they can rest assured that this communication goes both ways, right? So tell me
Yeah.
what's up and I can assist you so we can solve it and resolve it right away, rather than have it stumble upon us at your deposition, right? So for instance, so I like that works for me. And again, it seems to be working in a sense that people get it, to not push the limits.
No, that's unbelievable. And by the way, like I mentioned being like a social broker, it's kind of a funny thing. Like my friend used to tease me about that when he'd visit me when I lived at a high-rise building in the city of New Haven, Connecticut. And
Nice. Yeah.
so I'd like to connect you with like anybody that you see from that you might want to connect on lawyer stories like Instagram.
I would love to.
If
Absolutely.
you see attorneys on there that I might know,
Yeah.
like I could make the warm connection. Like I don't know if I'll always know them, but if
Sure,
I
sure.
do, like that's something that I love to do, and that's what Lawyer Stories is working towards doing. So
Oh, that's
we,
marvelous.
so I would
I'll
love
be
to. I
calling you
actually,
up on that. I'm glad it's being recorded, Benny, because I'm going to call you
well, I
out
mean,
on
look,
that.
I'm saying like my boy Dersh and like Ben Crump. I don't know if they're
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
I that's what you're thinking because everybody goes there, and I keep them in my back pocket, but I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
no, they're terrific.
Understood.
They're terrific men, and I don't. But anyway, if you see,
Yeah.
because I do have a few people that I know of in like Toronto, Ontario. They're practicing, doing personal injury, doing their thing, young
That
attorneys,
is
doing well.
fantastic.
And
Yeah.
I think it's important that the community, the legal community, kind of network.
Yeah.
And we have a
Certainly.
lot of actually great things in store for Lawyer Stories for the next year.
Awesome.
So tell us, like, where do you see your firm in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, certainly, I hope it keeps on going in the direction that it's going, of growing a really solid client base here in GTA area, the Greater Toronto area. But I wouldn't mind it growing out also into some other areas, especially those that I'm licensed in. So I mentioned Michigan. I don't mind stepping the foot back in California. But I also wouldn't mind kind of going on the west coast of Canada. I'm thinking Vancouver. So that's obviously very, very big and expensive idea. But again, I like to set my plans quite high to at least
That's
end up
amazing.
somewhere there in the middle. Yeah.
We know some terrific attorneys in Michigan, so we'll talk about
Awesome.
that, and we can connect you with them. Personal injury too. I'll give Christensen
That's
Law
great.
a shout out. My buddy Jordan Jones, who lives in California, big trucking attorney there in Michigan. But
Nice.
I can connect you with anybody. So
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, I'd love to. So do you have any last advice or words of wisdom for the Lawyer Stories community?
Well, I love what you do. And
Thank
I
you.
think that we should, kind of going off on what I said about, my ideas for the legal profession, the side of it all is exactly what you're doing. I think we need to stay connected because
Thank you.
only
Yeah.
through that shared experiences, we're able to get that much wiser, right? It's not like we're gonna, by sticking to our communities and spreading the word and knowing what other lawyers are going through, also in other areas of law, because I love this whole idea of legal innovation and
Yeah.
new programming, a new way of even logistics of calendaring. I mean, it doesn't have to be just the substantive law that we share, but just kind of growing within your community kind of lets you live several lives at the same time, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and learn upon each other's experiences. So I strongly hope, and I wish for all of us to stay connected in that way, but kind of even vicariously or somehow virtually, to make sure that we keep on connecting and growing together.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else before we conclude?
No, that's it. I just want to thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to become a part of the Lawyer Stories. So thank you.
You know what? The pleasure's all mine. Stay right there, Natalia.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening and watching. Contact us anytime, wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.